You are listening to Season 2 of the Humans of AI Stories Not Stats podcast. A Devi Parikh and Dhruv Batra talk to AI researchers to try and understand who they are as people, what their life is like, what they think about, what they're insecure about, and what they get really excited about. Questions that reveal the stories of their day to day life. In this episode, Dhruv talks with Pushmeet Kohli, who is a research scientist at Google DeepMind, where he heads the robust and reliable AI and AI for science teams. Pushmeet talks about our limited understanding of nature and biology, the importance of discipline, being competitive but in your own game, and a bunch of other stuff ranging from finding meaning in trying to understand the universe to struggling with changing babies' nappies. For more information about the podcast and the episodes, you can log on to www.humanstories.ai. And yeah, let's get right into the conversation.
Okay, Pushmeet Kohli, welcome to Humans of AI. Thank you for agreeing to participate. As you know, this is being recorded. I have a sequence of questions for you. Some may not require much thought. Others may require a bit more consideration, in which case, please feel free to pause and take your time to think. If you want to skip any question, you can do that. We don't have to get through all of them. But when in doubt, if you can err on the side of being open, vulnerable, transparent, we'll appreciate it. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So what were you doing right before this call?
I was having a meeting with one of the people I manage at DeepMind, and we were discussing what projects we should be doing in the next few months and years.
Does that seem surreal with everything else going on in the background to just go through the motions of regular daily work?
I mean, it's sort of a responsibility, like particularly the work that we do. I'm responsible for the AI for Science team at DeepMind, and I mean, I feel a great sense of responsibility uh, in terms of ensuring that the opportunity that has been given to us, which is leverage this very powerful technology towards um, tackling some of the greatest sort of challenges that us as a society we are facing. So, and so, yes, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world and a lot of unfortunate things, and there is a lot of there are a number of tragedies and so on. But we all have to sort of persevere and and get the best of what we have at the moment. And so I personally feel, and I think I can say this for many of my colleagues that I work with, we really feel a great sense of responsibility for ensuring that whatever we are doing, we shouldn't stop it, and we should just make sure that, in fact, do it much faster. Because if there is one thing that the last couple of years has shown us, is that as a civilization, we we simply do not have a great understanding of nature, and we need all the help we can get, human and artificial intelligence, to make sense of these challenges.
Yeah. And I just want to note for people watching this that we're recording this as COVID is having a particularly devastating impact in India. So on to perhaps lighter topics. What's your daily routine like?
So, okay, so I wake up around 6, um, um, get my kids ready for school. I have breakfast by 8:30, then drop off my sort of son to school, get back home at 9:30, and then I start work at 9:30 in the morning, and that goes on till sort of 6 in the evening, with a few breaks in the middle somewhere, and lots of very exciting work, and meeting and collaborating with a number of very passionate and excited colleagues, and that's where I get the energy. I mean, the people that you work with, uh, they they inform how you feel about your work and how about your life. And I think I'm particularly very fortunate with the colleagues I have. So um, that's what. So sort of end working at 5:36 in the evening, sort of spend time with the family, and then gets to bed by 9, and then spend a few hours sort of relaxing and sort of working more, and then off to bed by, I think, 11. Sometimes it's like midnight, but mostly sort of 11 o'clock, between 11 o'clock and midnight.
Mm. And do you set an alarm in the morning?
I have a 6-month-old. I don't need an alarm clock.
I see. You created a biological alarm.
Yeah, I have a biological alarm clock, which unfortunately at the moment goes off after every 2 hours.
I see. Um, are you a planner, or do you like going with the flow, operating with gut feeling, or do you like things structured and scheduled?
Okay, that's an interesting question. In the long run, I like plans. I don't like sort of just doing things and seeing how they would end up. I like to understand in which context we are working and what are we working towards. So in the long run, I really like a plan. In the short term, I don't sort of specifically. Um, I'm not very strategic in terms of I'll do this today and do that later. But I do think that there is some structure that is needed for the purposes of discipline. Um, but my sort of calendar and diary sort of enforces that discipline on me. So I have very little at the moment, very little time for procrastination, which is good. So longer term, I'm definitely of a planner, but in the shorter term, I'm more like, let's see how it goes and how things are.
Are you competitive, Pushmeet?
Competitive. Competitive in a different sense, in the sense that, like, when I was a kid, um, so I was a fat kid at school, and but I used to love sports. I don't know how I was fat. I mean, I used to eat a lot. Maybe that's how I was fat, because I used to sort of work out as well. And then they used to have these races at school, and expectedly, I wasn't in the top 3 when the race would end. So somehow I sort of explained it to myself that you don't have to win the game, like what the game that people have set up. You can sort of create your own game. So I like to win, but not necessarily in the metrics or in the games as set by society and or by, if somebody sort of sets up a competition and says, let's see who wins, I'm not very excited. I do think it's I do get excited about being the best at something, but it's more about sort of defining that thing myself rather than others sort of defining it.
Interesting. And that sounds like a philosophy for life, more than that particular event about high school racing.
Yeah. See, but that was the inspiration to explain it away.
Yeah. Is there a rejection or a failure that hurt particularly bad?
Rejection or failure. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if there was a specific one, uh, there are always sort of places where you're hoping for things and they don't turn out that way, and you feel sort of a sense of disappointment. So, number of sort of disappointments, like at school, in university, at grad school. Um, but over time, you realize that uh, sort of they are fine. Like when I was in school, I used to do really well, but there was sort of this particular student who used to always come first, and and I mean, yeah, I felt, yeah, I should be I should also come first one day, but it never happened. But but there was no sort of there was disappointment at one level, but at another level, you feel that there are definitely other things that you are doing, which may make sort of life sort of that there's more to life than winning. Um, um, and it's about basically how you process life rather than sort of what specifically you have achieved in it.
How do you make difficult decisions? Are there certain mental frameworks or lines of thinking that you find yourself going to? Do you end up making pros and cons lists, or is there some other process that you follow?
Uh, Pros and cons lists are good when you are thinking about it in a structured way, but um, uh, I rely, like, sometimes I rely on, I go with the what intuitively sort of feels sort of best. So pros and cons are a good way of actually just ensuring that everything you have awareness. So it's about awareness, but I'm not sort of guided by, let's see how many pros there are and how many cons there are, and then let's be very analytical uh, in rationalizing a decision. It's more about, let's see what are the different aspects, and then once you have awareness of all of these, then you make a decision. Then I make a decision intuitively. But I'm I prefer to be structured in terms of ensuring that I have awareness of all the issues at play. But then uh, um, do not always sort of go for a very analytical approach to taking that decision. Think about also what intuitively feels right.
Do you have an internal monologue? Do you talk to yourself in your head?
Um, Not necessarily, although my wife will tell you that I do this all the time, but I don't feel like I do this. But uh, so
She finds you speaking out loud as you're thinking through things.
no, I mean she finds me lost in my thoughts.
Okay.
So or not listening when she speaks. So I'm accused of that. I'll not tell you how I plead, but that's what I'm accused of.
And when you are lost in thinking, Is that thinking verbal or more visual? Do you find yourself thinking in pictures and diagrams, or do you find yourself thinking in words and sentences?
No, I think it's more visual.
Hmm.
I'm more of a quiet person when I'm thinking.
Hmm. And you're good at, for example, mentally rotating maps and coordinate systems in your head.
Um, Not sure, but I'm good at basically visualizing concepts um, in figures, trying to find analogs of real life situations and what a geometric interpretation of the problem at hand.
And what do you tend to think about when you're not actively trying to think about something? Like what goes on in the back burner to the extent that you're aware of it?
Something. I mean, the point is there are so many different threads and that I'm interested in, whether it's related to science or whether it's about how do you organize research, what's happening in the world today, politics, what is ethics, what does fairness mean, philosophy, a lot of different things I'm interested in. I try to basically connect. I try to basically connect all disciplines together. So I generally sort of like taking a problem from one discipline or in one context and reasoning about it in a different. So, what would ethics say about this computer vision problem, or what would sort of what would what would be a philosophy for taking on a particular approach to mathematics? So things like this.
Makes sense. Makes sense. How do you recharge or take a break?
Reading a book, walking. I love walking. Like especially if the terrain is sort of a bit hilly. Like I am from the mountains in India, so I love sort of walking anywhere where the terrain is sort of undulating, and yeah, you get good views. So that's my favorite sort of way to recharge.
Are you happy with the number of close friends you have?
I have a philosophy that you are happy with the current state you are in because that's what you sort of that's what you created implicitly. So I'm very happy with whatever number of friends I have at the moment. It might not be sort of very small or very large, and I don't even sort of know um, how would I qualify close in this context. But I'm happy with the number of close friends as you described it that I have.
What are you insecure about?
What am I insecure about? Yeah, I think my children. I think I'm insecure about my children. I'm very protective of my children. So I believe that um, humans have this myth of control that they control things, right? And I mean, like COVID is an example of how we don't control things even as a society, but somehow we are able to control things. Like I can control what I pick. I can control what I eat at the moment, and so on. But that gives you the that gets you into a sort of a state of mind that you feel that everything about your surroundings is controllable, and but it's not. And and in some sense, um, you are going into the world, and there is sort of limited control that you have on what is going to happen in the future. And there are certain things that you care so much about, especially along around your children. And so you feel a bit insecure, even though I mean, logically, sort of thinking that you shouldn't be worried about your kids, but about anything. In fact, there's nothing good comes out of worrying or being insecure about things, but still, somewhere you get insecure about these things.
Sense. Do you think you are average, above average, or below average happy compared to the people around you?
So what were the categories?
Average, above average, or below average? And perhaps you could interpret them as above median, below median, or just in the ballpark of median, happy compared to the people around you.
I am very, very happy. Like even above, maybe even in the category above average.
Makes sense. Yeah, that doesn't, knowing you over the years, that does not surprise me. That fits my mental model of you. Okay, so what is something surprising about you? Something that the rest of us who may know you from a professional context may not be able to guess?
Oh, so uh, so I'm an atheist, but many people who will see me like with a beard and a turban sort of might think that I'm particularly religious, but in fact I'm not. I'm like somewhere maybe between an agnostic and an atheist.
Hmm. Yeah, I can imagine that can be quite surprising for a large percentage of population of the world. I've grown up with friends who were Sikhs, but culturally practicing,
Yeah.
perhaps not in the same spiritual sense. And so I personally don't find that surprising, but I can see how that would be surprising.
Yeah.
What is something about the world that surprises you?
Um, that we don't collaborate even more. I find it so surprising that given what we know about how biology works, about science, about the world, that we are not one country. Uh, we have not been able to, humanity has not been able to come together. That I find very surprising. Um, yes, I mean, maybe earlier, like if you believe in um, uh, certain dogmas about religion, then or that one country is better than another country, and so on. But but now um, with our shared understanding of our origins, it feels quite um, it's very strange that we have not been able to come together as one entity. Uh, and we still have all these different divisions in terms of um, sort of cultural identity and nationalities and religions and so on. That I find it very fascinating and surprising.
Hmm. So a cynical read of the history of the world would suggest that we tend to come together when we can come together against something. That a unifying force, unfortunately for humanity, is their shared either their shared opposition to something, or shared defense against something. And so one sort of hypothesis is the day we get attacked by another species, interplanetary species, is the day humanity will discover that perhaps nation states and boundaries are not that important.
Yeah, maybe it would take that, right? But like if you think about SARS-CoV-2, like COVID, I mean, it's a shared challenge. And are we coming together against that shared challenge? It affects all of humanity together. But I mean, it's arguable that yes, there are certain elements. Like if you look at how the scientific community reacted and how much collaboration there was across, I mean, like it was amazing to see across countries, across sort of academic and industrial institutions. There was amazing amount of collaboration, and that's great. Uh, but why don't we just do it all the time? Why does it take like COVID for us to do this, work together? But let's just accelerate science all the time. And in terms of a shared challenge, understanding nature, we have very limited understanding of how even our bodies work. We know better, we might know much better than how a car works and so on. And we get worried, oh, my car is not going to function. But we have absolutely no idea about the real sort of understanding of how, like in detail, what are the causal mechanisms that that guide life, right? How does aging works? How does biology generally works? And how does nature work? And that is a sort of thing that we can all sort of come together to understand. And I find it very interesting that people worry about like this being a zero-sum game, right? If somebody wins, somebody loses, and so on. But this is understanding of nature is something that we can all sort of win against. We don't necessarily need an adversary. We just need a shared mission. And I feel that somehow we have not been able to come to consensus on a shared mission. We still sort of are driven by our biological sort of needs and habits, and have not been able to sort of overcome those in the pursuit of something more unified and global.
Yeah. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Strongly suspect, but I don't have any proof of. What do I not have proof of? I mean, the point is, I strongly suspect sleep is good for us, and actually, and I also strongly suspect that nurture has a lot to do where we sort of end up. The people around you, the environment, actually shapes who you are and your intelligence at a very in a very strong way. I mean, it's very difficult to find the proof that like you would have to do a
counterfactual.
You have to have a monozygotic twin and then do a control experiment. But I don't think I will get ethical approval for taking two twins apart and raising them in two different contexts. But it might have happened. I'm not really, and I think people must have sort of tried to find evidence for it. But I do feel that sort of serendipity and luck has a lot to do with where we end up.
What is something you've changed your mind about?
I used to think that what is some? I mean, I still think that. So maybe I've not really changed my mind. There's so many things. Like I have to think about this. Like, what is one particular thing? But there's so many um, different things. One thing maybe you can say I was so I was very I had very strong objections about sort of organized religion, and over time I've sort of come to realize that they serve their purpose. So maybe I'm not like strongly opposed to religion. I don't follow it, but I'm not extremely sort of against it. Like there are certain versions which I'm definitely sort of strongly against, but I've mellowed down on the less strong versions.
Yeah, yeah. How do you imagine your retirement?
Teaching kids, students, like in a university somewhere. Yeah, that's how I imagine retirement.
Your retirement is my profession.
No, like you
No,
are teaching.
I kid, obviously.
Yeah. No, I love teaching. I mean, the point is like retirement for me does not mean that you are finally having fun and doing the things that you would like to do, because I'm already doing that. My philosophy is that you should be doing sort of what you would do anyways. So if somebody stops, I mean, don't tell my employer, but if somebody stops paying me, I would still be doing the exact same thing.
Fewer Zoom calls, maybe.
No, like equal number of Zoom calls. I love collaborating with people, and I love sort of multidisciplinary work. So I would still be doing all of that. But maybe I feel that sort of I will be doing it at a slower pace. But yeah, I mean, my sort of notion of retirement is doing the same work, but maybe at a slightly lower pace.
And do you have a place in mind and an age in mind?
I mean, that depends on biology. When biology sort of makes when I'm not able to sort of work at the pace I'm currently able to, then I think then I would know. Now, whether that happens like at 60, at 50, at 40, at 70, I don't know. But
or at 120 if anti-aging research comes through.
I'm not really sure. I want to sort of I want to live that long. I like. Yeah, I mean, like anti-aging is one thing, right? But also, like, what can the brain handle? I mean, our brains are amazing, but I don't think that they evolved for such long life.
I mean, the life expectancy was in 30s at some point, and we've stretched it to 80. Is there something is a physical law that says we cannot stretch it to a reasonably functional human being that is 200 years old?
Yeah, we could. I think it's all about basically, yeah, like it's all sort of relative, right? But like 80, 30 are just numbers, right? 120 is a number. Like maybe we will sort of think of it, think of all these sort of milestones in a different way. Yeah, it could be 120, who knows? But having had so much excitement till now, yeah, there's also excitement overload. so let's see. I might change my mind on this later.
Yeah, this could be one of those things that you change your mind about as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you remind me, um, yeah, I did change my mind on many things. I used to think that um, um, I will like I'm not I was not very sure whether I would have kids, but then I changed my mind on that. Um, so that's another thing that I changed my mind on.
Hmm? And now they serve as biological alarm clocks.
Yeah, exactly. So I got what I deserved.
Onto a shorter time horizon. If you had to make a prediction about when the world, or perhaps more locally, your part of the world, will open back up post COVID, what would you say? What would you predict?
I mean, in the UK, is all UK is already sort of opening up, but I think um, we have to see how things go. There are all these different variants now that are on the horizon. Um, uh, a limited proportion of the population has been vaccinated. There's also there are two sort of parts of this. One is vaccine efficacy and also vaccine coverage. So vaccine efficacy, I mean, it seems to the evidence seems to suggest that vaccines work even on the variants. Whether that will continue to be the case for newer variants, that has to be seen. And the other is vaccine coverage. At the moment, only sort of children have not been vaccinated, and whether teenagers and children we are able to sort of get universal vaccination and vaccines are safe and effective in all these different age groups. That also has to be seen. But I think that there are sort of signs that things are opening up, but I I do think it will take a year or more for things to get completely sort of back to what I mean. I'm not sure whether we will be able to get back to how things were before the pandemic. People will sort of have much more awareness now of how viruses spread and so on, and but it will be, and then people have a lot more awareness of how effective remote working can be, and remote collaborations can be, and it's much better for the planet. So I don't think it will be business as usual, but I think things will probably sort of get to some semblance of normality in the next year or so.
Hmm. On to perhaps significantly longer time horizon. Do you think there is a point to life and our existence?
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's like it's to understand, like understand what is that we are experiencing. Um, I I think it depends on what. It's a very personal question. I mean, you can make anything the mission of your life. Um, so I'm of the firm believer that like people have their own sort of mission. In my particular case, it's about understanding nature. I sort of feel that um, you experience these things and and like finding out how sort of how nature and universe works is a goal worth pursuing. Um, but life as a chemical reaction that somehow has persisted and somehow tries to makes itself persist even more. Um, yeah, we are all playing a part in it, whether we do it consciously or subconsciously. From the Elon Musks of the world to Joe Public on the street.
Mhm. So perhaps it's clear that just understanding the universe around you gives you meaning. What do you struggle with then in life?
What I struggle with, uh, changing nappies, a lot of different things, changing nappies, like getting kids to sleep. I really struggle with all of that.
I like the sharp transition. The aim is to understand the universe, but if we could only get toddlers to not kick while we are changing diapers, that would be nice.
Yeah, like the point is, like, you don't really understand. We don't understand babies. Like, we don't understand life. I mean, I mean, we are thinking of understanding a cell. How does a cell work? We don't really. Nobody has a complete picture, the full mechanistic model of even which can accurately describe any cell. I mean, and we are talking about a baby. A baby is a really complex being. So I struggle with that. And I have no qualms in admitting defeat.
I also see that there are now two levels at which you struggle with understanding babies. One is at a philosophical level. One is, can you just please stop kicking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, on to perhaps even more philosophical things. Um, Pineapple topping on pizza, yes or no?
I mean, it depends on basically at which stage of life you are at. I mean,
I
when I was
see.
a grad student, anything on a pizza, I would eat it.
I see. But now you have choices and taste.
Yeah, now I might not go for it.
So I think that answers that question.
Okay.
Um, what are some traits common to some of the best collaborators or colleagues that you've worked with?
Um, Very passionate, curious, and respectful. And the last one is very important. I think some of the best collaborators are very respectful and I should say kind. I've had the great fortune of being able to work with some very kind people, very curious, who are very curious and very respectful and very focused.
Hmm. And do you think you're able to spot these traits early in an interaction?
No, uh, but over time, I think it just sometimes basically humans are very interesting. I mean, sometimes people just mirror the behavior that they observe, and if you surround yourself with people of these traits, even if a new person might come in who might not have those traits, they might just like these traits, like they spread by osmosis.
Hmm.
Like there's some diffusion process, and so in some sense, you don't even need to sort of be very selective. Um, like everyone around you somehow, the whole environment and the context around you just facilitates those kind of individuals.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. Describe something that made you smile this week.
What made me smile this week? I told you I have a 6 month old, so like I've been smiling. Uh, like she treats me as if she has a personal sort of chauffeur and a personal butler who has to be ordered around, and so I've got a break so that I'm able to sort of meet you, but I just have to go back. So 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 I like my 6 month old daughter, like, yeah, I have to see how she treats me and not and do anything but smile.
That makes sense. What is some of the best advice that you've gotten or given along your journey or along someone else's journey? Or what do you tell young people entering the field, or what would you want to tell your kids someday?
Yeah, I mean, these are all sort of very cliched things like do what you love and so on. But um, but I think it's I think it's very powerful when you show something to someone rather than tell them. So I generally am a great believer in the mantra of don't tell, show. And if you can't show, then don't don't bother. Um, uh, I have had the really good fortune of having some really good mentors, some amazing leaders, um, managers, advisors, and they have all sort of shaped me in their different sort of way. But one thing that was sort of common in all of them was um, sort of focus and discipline. And I was not a very disciplined person. Uh, like growing up, I would just do what I wanted to do. Um, if I if I wanted to, if I felt like playing cricket, I would just play cricket. I will not study. And if I play, yeah, so I'll do what I wanted to do. And in some sense, what my mentors and advisors sort of showed me, not told me, was the importance of discipline. And that is what I have to give them a lot of credit for. So discipline is something that's important in life. There is a rhythm to it. Uh, um, yeah, and of course, you need to be passionate. You should need to do what you really like, but there's also an element of being disciplined about things.
Makes sense. My final question: why did you agree to do this interview with me?
I don't know. I like it's been a long time since we last spoke. I thought, okay, this would be a good excuse to chat with Dhruv. I don't know how, like, has his uh, has his hair turned gray? The last time I sort of saw him was in a conference. Now conferences are off. Who knows, like what Dhruv looks like? So I thought good excuse to actually sort of get back in touch with Dhruv. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the primary reasons, Dhruv.
Well, I'm glad. This is what I look like. Some of my hair is grayer, but not predominantly so. That is not.
You are doing well. You're doing well. You're going to the gym. I can see it.
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, I hope basically sort of yeah, you are sort of you're well, and both you and Devi are sort of well, and yeah, I know you are a disciplined person, so I don't need to sort of tell you or show you any sort of discipline. Yeah, it's great.
The fascinating part about giving people advice and leading through actions as opposed to words is that your actions actually have a farther reach than your words do. Words, you have to actually have a communication and a conversation with someone, but actions people can see at a distance. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I follow your progression and career along, so I think you're setting an example for me from afar.
Okay. Yeah. Don't take too much from my example.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will find yourself basically changing diapers at 4 o'clock in the night. So
Yeah, perhaps not that part. Yeah. Okay. So Pushmeet, thank you for doing this. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about in terms of an aspect of your life, who you are, that is particularly relevant and that we should talk about?
No, I believe that we are all our interactions with individuals are just a projection of what the object is. Like in computer vision, we work with projections of the object, and every interaction is just a projection of the true object, and it just gives us a sense of a person, and it's not even the person sort of changes over time, or the object changes over time, but it's good to sort of capture think about a mental reconstruction, and in some sense what you reconstruct is part your biases and your beliefs. So if if you see any goodness in people, a lot of it has to do with you're projecting your own mental image. So it's I just just take everything with that pinch of salt. But do talk to people and interact with people and learn about the world. I think that's my main message.
Okay, I think that's that's an excellent place to stop. I think your parental duties now call you. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing this.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye,
Bye.
Dhruv.
Bye. Bye.